How's it going, everybody?
Good. You tell us.
Tell us where Yamamoto's going, and we'll let you know how we're doing.
I was gonna start easy with when. When is Yamamoto going?
Originally, I was thinking this week, and it still could be this week, but I'm not totally convinced it's going to be this week. And keep in mind, his 45-day window lasts until January 4th. Now, I don't expect it's going to take that long. No one does. But this is a player who is not familiar with the American system. He's not like a prospect who comes up following all these teams and aware of each organization. So he is taking his time to learn about each team. That's why the meetings are taking place. And it would seem to me at this point that he has enough information, and it's just a matter of who makes the best offer. But I'm not sure it will be this week. It certainly sounds like it. I think that's the goal. I would imagine everyone wants this done before Christmas on both sides. But at the same time, these things do have a way of dragging. So we'll see.
Is this indicative to his personality compared to Shohei? I know Shohei was here for 6 years. He's seen the teams, he's seen the cities, but he was very reserved. And I mentioned it yesterday that Adam Jones had said on our show before that Yamamoto loves a Rolls Royce. Like, he likes nice things. So is this more indicative of his personality where he's like, oh, I want to get out there. I want to kind of be seen a little bit and see what I'm about to get into?
Eric, you nailed it on the personality. He's almost the anti-Ohtani. He is I don't know if gregarious is the right word, but he enjoys the spotlight. He likes that. But I will go back to what I said in the previous answer. It seems to me it's more of a learning process than, hey, show me how great your house is, Steve Cohen. He needs to get to know these people. He doesn't know any of them. So he's kind of wanting to just get a little bit more familiar. And you guys know this. One meeting can tell you only so much. Two can only tell you so much as well. But that familiarity, from what I understand, is what he's seeking. A greater familiarity than what he had, of course, all those years in Japan.
Ken, you like, as this drags on, it feels like the numbers go up and up and up of how much we could maybe expect him to see. And I'm curious, it's crazy in some ways to think about a $300 million contract for someone who's never played in Major League Baseball. You see people say that all the time. So I wanted to get your perspective, just as someone who's been covering the league for so long, on how we've seen teams their confidence in international players grow. Like, how is it that we're at a point where someone could get a $300 million contract in their first time coming over to the States? How are teams evaluating international players, and how different is that from maybe when you started out?
Hannah, it's a really good question. And, Saris of The Athletic wrote about this, I believe it was last week. And he basically said, with all the technology now, all the things that teams use to measure pitchers, that helps in the process. That gives them a greater confidence that Yamamoto's splitter is this, his fastball is that. We know what his pitches look like. We know how they play. So that is part of it. But at the same time, there has always been an obsession with the younger Japanese pitcher. I mean, always. This is going back 20 years. Go back to Matsuzaka in 2006. He was turning 26, and the Red Sox paid $51 million for his rights and then gave him a 6-year, $52 million contract. Tanaka was the same thing in 2014. Masahiro Tanaka signs with the Yankees for $155 million. Why the frenzy then? Because he was 25 years old, just like Yamamoto is now. So it seems to me that age is the biggest driver here. And we know how teams are with their actuarial tables. They just love looking at them and drooling over them. And when they get a young guy, they can lock up long term. They're going to try to do it. So I don't know that the confidence has gotten that much greater in the players, but certainly the information and the knowledge has gotten greater. And that is probably a factor here.
Is there sleeper teams? Obviously, they wouldn't be a sleeper team if Ken Rosenthal says it. But how is it possible that there aren't sleeper teams that so many people know about? You follow what I'm saying? Like, is there, are we missing something? Are there teams that keep it so close to the chest that even Ken Rosenthal doesn't know about it?
Well, that often is the case, Eric. And we know in this case, though, of 7 teams. And they've been out there, the names of those teams: Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, Blue Jays, Phillies, Giants, and I'm missing one, but there's somebody else in there, the Red Sox. So those are 7 of the larger market teams in the sport. Now, we can also eliminate certain smaller market teams that are not going to spend $250 million or $300 million on a pitcher. At least I don't expect them to. But as much as fans like to joke about when writers mention mystery teams, there usually are mystery teams. Now, they're mysteries because we can't figure out who they are, but sometimes it surfaces later, and sometimes there are teams lurking, and yes, they are playing it close to the vest and not revealing their hand at all. But in this particular free agency, I don't know that there are. It seems to me that the teams that are in are out there. We know who they are. They're kind of the obvious teams for a player who is going to cost as much money as he will.
Ken, if the teams you mentioned, mainly Yankees, Dodgers, if they don't get Yamamoto, who's next for them? I've read things about this super Yankee bullpen. They tried that before. It didn't work for them. What was it 2018, 2019 with Britton, Chapman, and all those guys, right? So what's next for the Yankees if they don't get Yamamoto? And what's next for the Dodgers on the starting pitching market if they don't get him?
Well, certainly for the Yankees and the Dodgers, they would need starting pitching at that point. The Yankees, in fact, even if they sign Yamamoto, probably will look for an innings guy because of the uncertainties in their rotation. The Dodgers, they can do a number of things, as can the Yankees. At some point, Dylan Cease is going to be traded. Corbin Burns, I'm not as convinced by. That one seems to change by the day, whether he's going or not going. And then there's Shane Bieber. Maybe Framber Valdez gets out there, though I don't know that the Astros would ever trade him to the Yankees. So there will be options, and there are free agent options, of course, still out there as well. Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, and beyond that, Lucas Giolito and a number of others. So it's not as if the cupboard will be entirely bare, but these teams do need starting pitching, and they clearly feel, based on their actions and based on the way the market is going, that Yamamoto is the most desirable. After that, we'll just have to see. The Red Sox are another team, AJ. If they don't get Yamamoto, this is a team that has promised to go full throttle. That's the words of their chairman, Tom Werner. They've yet to do that. Do they turn around and go get Snell or Montgomery? Is that the move? We'll see.
Ken, I think you wrote most recently about how if the Mets don't get Yamamoto, that they won't necessarily pivot to another big pitcher star free agent. Do you think that their ambition or lack thereof for 2024 is affecting their pitch to Yamamoto?
Hannah, that's a really good question. And I would imagine that they've told Yamamoto, okay, if we sign you, we'll do some other things as well. Maybe not crazy things. There won't be much crazy left to do. But I would imagine they'd be more aggressive in filling out their club at that point. And if you're Yamamoto, and you hear this, I don't know that it deters you from signing with them because they have a clear plan. They want to be really competitive in 25 and beyond. They're kind of pointing everything toward that. And Yamamoto fits great because there's not a draft pick attached, so he doesn't compromise their future. And he is so young. But if they don't get him, it's going to be really interesting because their fans, as you mentioned earlier, are going to be a little upset and they're going to want to see action. They're not going to buy this, hey, let's wait another year, all's going to be good. So I don't know that they'll change their behavior at that point. Maybe they'll be reactive to the fans' disappointment, maybe not. But that is a team certainly worth watching here.
Phillies. What is the likelihood that they are actually making an offer to Yamamoto? Because of more of a next year question, Zach Wheeler goes on the market, and now all of a sudden you don't have your 1-2 punch. Is this the sleeper team that could possibly make a bigger splash than, say, the Mets, say the Yankees, those other teams that are at the top of this free agent market?
It's possible, Eric. And certainly their owner, John Middleton, has shown a pretty rare commitment over the last several years in the way he's investing in players. Now, they're getting to a point with their luxury tax payroll and their cash payroll where it's getting pretty steep. And that could factor in here. But they did meet with Yamamoto. They apparently were quite serious and are quite serious. I don't know that they expect to win this, but as I wrote the other day, one of the things they're trying to do here is establish more of a foothold in the Asian market, Japan in particular. And if you meet with Yamamoto and you express a sincere desire to have him, even though they've only had 2 Japanese players in their history, then maybe you're starting in that process to get more of a foothold, more footing in that part of the world. They have increased their scouting presence over there. They've done some other things as well to kind of kickstart it a little bit, but it's something Dave Dombrowski has been talking about and has been focused on. And pursuing Yamamoto fits in that mode, even if they don't get him.
Ken, if we just had a comp on our chat that Yamamoto's 25 power stuff for Spencer Strider. Spencer Strider 74 million. Yamamoto's about to get around 300 million. That's kind of crazy to a guy that came up through the ARB system and did all that. That everyone's like, man, Spencer Strider signed this great deal, but Yamamoto's going to come over and get 300 million, which is what 4 times the 74 that Strider's getting. That's not my question. My question is about other starting pitchers. We had this argument the other day. Blake Snell, where does he fit? Right? Marcus Stroman, where does he fit? Are they all waiting on Yamamoto to sign and then it opens up the other places for these guys? Because if you start looking around, there's not a ton of options for some of these guys if they want the mega contracts that they're looking for.
Yes, you're right. And they are waiting, AJ. There's no question about that. Scott Boras likes to wait anyway. And I imagine when the Yamamoto number goes out there, then he has Snell and Montgomery, and he's raring to go, right? With the losers of the Derby. You mentioned Strider versus Yamamoto. Just to address that, the difference is that Strider was not a free agent. He was not even close to free agency. He was part of the normal major league system, whereas Yamamoto is, and subject to bidding for all 30 teams. But as far as the waiting game, yes, it does kind of proceed like that. The one domino has to fall, and then the others can follow behind. And that's what's going on here. Now, I thought actually that once Ohtani signed, things would open up more, but it seems that there's so much tied to Yamamoto. These 7 teams that we've discussed, they're all waiting. And once Yamamoto decides, then they can act, and then other teams will follow in their wake, and things will happen. But for now, I mentioned this on my own show yesterday, only 13 of the top 40 free agents, according to The Athletic, have signed. 13 of 40, and we're almost 7 weeks into free agency. That's a slow pace.
All right, let's shift a little bit to probably more 1-year, 2-year guys. Who is the market setting up better for? JD Martinez or Justin Turner?
I don't know. They're both kind of in the same category. Right-handed hitting DH types. Justin can play the field a little bit, so can JD a little bit. But they're essentially DHs at this stage of their careers. It sets up well for both. And the Diamondbacks, the Mariners, a number of teams are looking for that kind of player. Both are still highly productive, though maybe not what they once were, but really good. Justin Turner in particular last year had a fantastic season for the Red Sox, and JD was really good as well. So it seems to me they're different a little bit, Eric, obviously, but they're kind of in that same pocket of players. And I would expect they'll do okay, even at their advanced ages from a baseball standpoint.
Before we let you go, this isn't even a question. This was just one of the last notes in your latest article was that the Astros under owner Jim Crane, have only exceeded the luxury tax threshold once? That just seems insane to me for all the success that they have. Shouldn't they be willing to go over the threshold? They must have made all this money from gate receipts and, I don't know, advertising revenue after having been so good. Why are they so thrifty, I guess? Maybe because they can be.
Well, yeah, that's one reason. And I did not realize this at the time, but they might be one of the teams affected by the RSN situation too. It's not a Bally's team, but someone pointed out to me that they're having their own particular issues. I'm not sure what they are. I'm not going to speak out of ignorance here, but someone mentioned that to me. Jim Crane in general does not want to do that, and he has not gone crazy in free agency. They've done some big extensions for Bregman, for Alvarez, and Altuve, of course, but they really haven't gone crazy for free agents. Abreu might have been their most expensive free agent. So this is the way they've operated. As you said, they've obviously had great success doing it. And what's interesting is not only have they only gone over once, The one year they went over was 2020 when the penalties were suspended because it was the COVID year. So they really have never paid a penalty. And they're right up against it right now. They're either slightly above 237, slightly below 237 is the first threshold. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do. They want to add bullpen. And if you look at it, right now might be the ideal time to take Framber Valdez to the market if you're not going to sign him to an extension. 2 years of control left. But at the same time, the Astros want their starting pitching intact, and understandably so. So I don't know where they're going with this, if anywhere. But yes, the luxury tax threshold is an issue for them.
Ken, speaking of Houston, this past postseason, I did a series Houston and Minnesota, and Hannah Kaiser walks by me, and I say, "Hi, Hannah," and she just big league me. Would she do that to you, or would she actually know who you are if you see her?
AJ, maybe she was focused on something else besides seeing AJ Brzezinski. Could you imagine?
She almost ran it. She was like this, Ken. Look, she had her notepad, and she was like this, and she literally almost. I had to jump out of the way of her because she would not look up. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't notepad and walk through out of a clubhouse door. I usually wait till I get around the corner to start notebooking.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have a notepad?
No, but I mean, it's for the story, Ken. Stop! Don't ruin a good story with the truth, okay? Would she have said hi to you if you said hi, Hannah, or would she have big leagued you also?
I don't believe Hannah would have big leagued me, but if she was busy and did big league me, I don't think I would be offended either.
That's the thing. Ken would know. Ken would say, "Oh my gosh, she looks busy.
She's busy.
She's busy.
Yeah.
She's busy.
A hustler.
She's got work to do. She's got places to be." All right, Ken has
places
AJ, to be, so we have to let you
go. My ego would not be punctured by such an.
I wasn't punctured. It was just
more
more
of
of a.
Sounds like it.
It was just
3 months later.
Ken, it was just more of like a disappointment, right? Because I wanted to be all cool. I'm standing there with Adam Wainwright. I'm standing with Adam Amin, standing there with Tom Verducci, and I'm like, oh, I know her. She's been on my podcast before. Oh, hey, Hannah. Nothing. So then Wayno's like, oh, you guys are tight, right? And then Verducci writes a story about it. And then Adam Amin's like, how can I work this into the broadcast, right? Meanwhile, I'm just standing there going like, that was cool talk. Thanks, Hannah.
There was a lot there that you embellished for the story, AJ. Virtually every one of those incidents you embellished.
All right. Just like I was that day, Ken is busy. He's a man with places to go. We're going to have to let him go. Thank you so much, Ken. You can check out more from Ken on Fair Territory on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.